What if a single war could collapse the global economy? Not slowly, not gradually, but all at once. Oil prices exploding, supply chains breaking, entire nations pushed to the brink. This is not a prediction anymore. It's already starting. The spark. The Iran war didn't begin as a global crisis. At first it looked like another regional conflict, something contained, distant, manageable. But history has shown us something dangerous. The biggest economic disasters don't come from what we expect. They come from what we underestimate. Why this war is different. This conflict is not just about territory or politics. It sits at the center of the world's energy system. And that changes everything. Because when energy is threatened, the entire global economy starts to tremble. The oil lifeline. Oil is more than fuel. It powers transportation, manufacturing, food production, even the devices you're using right now. And when oil stops flowing, the world doesn't slow down. It breaks. The Strait of Hormuz. There's one place on Earth that matters more than any other in this crisis. The Strait of Hormuz, a narrow strip of water, yet nearly 20% of the world's oil passes through it. If this route is blocked, global energy supply collapses overnight. The price shock. Experts are already warning. Oil prices could surge past $200 per barrel. Think about that for a second. That's not just expensive fuel. That's a global economic shockwave. Inflation explosion. When oil prices rise, everything becomes more expensive. Food, electricity, transportation, daily life. Inflation doesn't just increase. It spirals out of control. The return of stagflation. And here's where things get worse. Economies could enter something called stagflation, a deadly combination of high inflation and zero economic growth. It's one of the hardest crises to escape. Supply chains collapsing. This war isn't just about oil. It's disrupting global supply chains. Shipping routes are threatened. Delivery times are increasing. And costs are skyrocketing. The system that keeps the world running is starting to crack. Shortages begin. Soon, it's not just about higher prices. It's about things disappearing. Fuel shortages, industrial materials, even basic goods. Factories could slow down or stop completely. Global trade freeze. International trade depends on stability, but war destroys that stability. Ships reroute, ports become unsafe, costs multiply, and slowly, trade begins to freeze. Markets in panic. Financial markets don't wait. They react instantly. Stocks drop. Investors panic. Volatility spikes. And fear spreads faster than the war itself. Central bank nightmare. Central banks face an impossible decision. Raise interest rates and risk killing growth. Or lower them and let inflation run wild. There is no easy way out. The most vulnerable. Developing nations are standing on the edge of collapse. These countries depend heavily on imported energy. They don't have the financial buffers. They don't have the reserves. So when oil prices surge, their economies don't bend. They break. Currencies weaken. Debt explodes. And millions are pushed closer to poverty overnight. The food chain reaction. This crisis doesn't stop at fuel. It spreads into something far more dangerous. Food. Modern agriculture depends on energy. From fertilizers to machinery to transportation. When energy prices rise, food becomes more expensive, and in some places, it becomes scarce. The beginning of shortages. At first it's subtle. Empty shelves here, delayed shipments there. But then it grows. Essential goods begin to disappear. Not because they don't exist, but because they can't be moved. Global trade under pressure. The global economy runs on movement. Ships crossing oceans, trucks crossing borders, planes connecting continents. But war changes everything. Routes become dangerous. Insurance costs skyrocket. Delays become the new normal. The cost of fear. Fear has a price. And in global markets, that price is massive. Investors pull back. Companies hesitate. Expansion stops. Not because they want to, but because uncertainty makes planning impossible. Markets in turmoil. Stock markets begin to shake, then drop, then swing wildly. Because no one knows what comes next. And in finance, uncertainty is the most dangerous force of all. Central bank trap. Central banks are trapped. Raise interest rates and risk crushing economic growth. Lower them and inflation spirals out of control. It's a no-win situation. Europe's energy crisis. Europe finds itself in a familiar nightmare. Energy dependency becomes a weakness. Costs rise sharply. Industries struggle to stay competitive. And governments face mounting pressure from both businesses and citizens. Asia's manufacturing shock. Asia, the manufacturing hub of the world, feels the shock instantly. Factories depend on stable energy and predictable supply chains. But now, costs rise, materials are delayed, and production slows. The shipping crisis. Shipping lanes are the arteries of global trade, and they are under threat. Insurance premiums surge. Routes are rerouted. Delivery times double. The cost of moving goods becomes a crisis of its own. Corporate survival mode. Companies shift into survival mode. Hiring freezes. Budgets shrink. Expansion plans are cancelled. The focus changes from growth to survival. Job losses begin, and when companies stop growing, jobs disappear. Layoffs begin slowly, then accelerate. Unemployment rises, and economic pain spreads to households everywhere. Government intervention. Governments step in. Subsidies, price controls, emergency spending. But these are temporary solutions to a potentially long-term crisis. The debt explosion. All that spending has consequences. Government debt rises rapidly. In many countries, it's already at dangerous levels. This crisis could push it over the edge. Currency instability. As confidence drops, currencies begin to fluctuate. Some weaken dramatically. Imports become more expensive. And inflation gets even worse. The global recession threat. All signs begin pointing to one outcome: a global recession. Economic growth slows. Demand drops, production declines, and the world economy begins to contract. A multi-crisis world. This isn't happening in isolation. The world is already fragile. Post-pandemic recovery. Existing geopolitical tensions. Economic instability. Now everything is colliding. Energy transition accelerates, but crises create change. Countries begin to rethink energy. Renewables gain urgency. Diversification becomes critical. Dependence becomes risk. Supply chains rewritten. Global supply chains may never be the same. Countries start bringing production closer to home. Efficiency is replaced by security. Globalization begins to shift. Power realignment. Geopolitics begins to shift. Alliances change. New partnerships form. Power balances move. And the global order starts to evolve. Markets still in denial. Despite everything, some markets remain calm. Too calm. Experts warn the real shock may not have hit yet. The psychology of collapse. Because economies are not just systems, they are beliefs. When people believe in stability, everything works. When they don't, everything falls apart. Consumer behavior shifts. People begin to change, spending less, saving more, avoiding risk. And when consumers pull back, the economy slows even faster. The cascade effect. This is how collapse happens. Not in one moment, but in a chain reaction. One failure leads to another, and another, until the system can't hold anymore. Best case scenario. There is still hope. If the conflict ends quickly, the damage may be contained. Markets recover. Supply chains stabilize, and the world moves forward. Worst case scenario. But if it doesn't, this could become one of the largest economic crises in history. Long-term disruption, structural changes, a completely different global economy. The turning point. We are at a turning point. A moment that could define the next decade, or even longer. The decisions made now will shape the future. This is not just a distant conflict. It is a global economic threat already unfolding. Quietly, relentlessly, inevitably. And the real question is no longer, is the world at risk? But are we prepared for what comes next? Stay informed. Stay aware. Because in a world this connected, what happens there will impact you here. Subscribe now and don't miss what happens next.